What if the events of the Acolyte played out differently? Let's explore the depths of this scenario in the video. May stares up at the blood-red sky as she descends the boarding ramp. There is no mistaking where she is. Dathomir. After years of research and saving up for this trip, she had finally found someone willing to take her there. The planet was said to be the home of the Night Sisters, a great coven of witches feared across the galaxy. Here she might be able to find a home. She thinks of the countless nights wandering alone, the times she's yearned for family, the emptiness that plagues her, and the loss that still feels fresh after all this time. Those thoughts guide her as she walks through the forests, hearing the whispers around her. As she approaches the fortress, the shadows descend around her, holding blades and bows. She raises her hands slowly.
I don't wish to fight you. I want to join you.
The Night Sisters hiss and mutter amongst themselves in a language she does not understand. But when their leader speaks to her, the words are clear. Outsiders are not welcome here. May, without looking, can feel their weapons on her and draws herself up.
I have traveled a long way to get here. I'm not going anywhere.
They all let out a low hiss and prepare to attack, but a voice calls upon them to stop. May looks up and sees a larger shadow pushing through the trees. The woman who appears before her is tall with ghostly pale skin and crimson robes that seem to float around her ankles with no corporeal end. Mother Talzin inspects her.
Enough. I sense great power in this child. Tell me, who are you?
I am May, daughter of Anasaea, ruler of the Coven of Brendok.
A coven? So, you are a witch, young one.
I am. Or, I hope to become one.
Where are your sisters, then? Did they give their blessing?
My sisters and my mother are all dead.
Talzin places a hand on her shoulder and guides her towards the fortress. The Night Sisters take this as their signal to lower their weapons.
Then we have much to discuss.
Once inside the fortress, May tells Talzin everything she remembers about the incident on Brendok. She explains how the Jedi interrupted their ritual and tried to take her sister Osha away from her. This ends with the Jedi killing the witches. As Talzin hears this, she shakes her head.
The Jedi fear what they do not understand. The Force is full of mysteries, young one. Mysteries that can only be unlocked through the dark side. I can show you these teachings.
May eagerly agrees, and Talzin takes her on as a member of the Night Sisters. Thankfully, the young witch already has experience in the Force and combat. As Talzin sees her managing to outfight some of her sisters in training, she can channel some basic tricks like pushing or pulling, but it's clear May never received any formal training to use these powers. Talzin takes over as her mentor in the Force and pushes her hard. Every day she takes May out to the jungles to meditate and study the expansive ecosystem of Dathomir, showing her how to gather ingredients and channel spells. These lessons start simple, a hex here or an illusion there, but they grow far more complex over time, from teaching her how to disappear into mist to casting curses on her enemies. But Talzin saves the most powerful spells for last. She senses the unhappiness and loss in her student. Although May finds a new life in the Night Sisters, she's never truly accepted, as most of them view her as an outsider. But Mother Talzin sees this loneliness and senses opportunity within her. Over time, she begins to teach May her most powerful spell, necromancy. Harnessing May's longing for her family, Talzin proceeds to teach her to reach out to the souls from beyond and to summon them to her side. The process is long and difficult as May struggles to channel these new abilities. but does manage to summon a few ghosts. As they continue their training, Talzin's Night Sisters receive an unexpected visitor, their old ally, Darth Plagueis. While May continues her training with the other witches, the Sith Lord and Night Mother observe her from the fortress.
So it appears our seeds have indeed sprouted.
Yes. This one even came to me. Her loyalty to the witches brought her here to continue her training.
Indeed. Always one, but born as two. Where is the second child?
Not with her. They were separated when they were young by the Jedi, according to May.
That is concerning. Do they know of our involvement?
Thankfully, it appears not. There was no one left to reveal it.
Plagueis allows himself a sigh of relief. Years ago, the two of them had discovered the Vergence on Brendok and saw its potential. It was the reason Talzin and Plagueis had helped the witches settle on the planet and provided them with their research. Talzin's knowledge of necromancy and magic, and Plagueis' mastery of the dark side. Although the witches believed themselves to be free in studying their own philosophy, the truth is they were simply carrying out the two masters' research without drawing the Jedi's attention.
How does May's training progress?
Slow. While she has talent, she is careless and doesn't consider any opinion but her own. My children have little love for her.
Then allow me to fulfill my share of our alliance, Mother. You have trained her in your ways. Now allow me to train her in mine. I have an asset who might instill some discipline in her.
To continue their efforts, Plagueis sends Chimere to help train May. Talzin sees how May struggles to harness her powers because of her recklessness, lack of self-control, and obsession with finding her sister, and agrees, deciding it might be best for her to learn from someone else. In contrast to Talzin, Chimere is much harsher in training. He always kept his helmet on during training, even concealing himself during lessons in theory, whereas the Night Sisters were straightforward with their teachings. Chimere instead would simply give her tasks and order her to perform them, with failure being met with severe punishments. He never showed his face and left May in constant fear of him. He told her that fear should give her power, motivating her to get the job done. For months, the two continued this unusual training, until one day Chimere provides her with a new mission: to kill the 4 Jedi stationed on Brendok. She was to do this alone, and Chimere would only reappear once it was done. Before May can ask more questions, Chimere disappears, leaving her alone. Weeks later, Osha yields as Master Sol and his team detain her on their ship, believing she is responsible for the death of Master Indara. However, as they prepare to depart the planet, they learn about another attack on the Jedi Temple on Olega. The target was Master Torben. Sol takes this as proof that Osha is innocent and asks her to help hunt down the assassin who they suspect is her sister. Alongside Yearned and Jeki, the two of them head to Olega to help catch the assassin. With the extra security around the temple on Olega, May knows she cannot just sneak in. To reach Torben, she has to be no less than a phantom. She begins closing her eyes and concentrates, pouring her anger and doubt into a relatively complex spell as she summons a pair of witch ghosts. Smiling, she sends them out to attack the temple. The ghosts begin to wail and shriek as they rush through the temple, their fingers lengthening into claws as they attack any Jedi who gets in their way. Sol and Jeki hurry to help the Jedi, while Osha and Yearned secure Master Torben. The two hurry down the halls of the temple, trying to block out the unearthly wails that bounce off the walls. Osha shakes her head and tries to concentrate, but the sounds send shivers down her spine and leave her head spinning. As they sprint, she feels a strange pounding in her head, and then images flash across her mind. Instead of going into the meditation room where Torben usually goes, she heads down another hall towards his private quarters.
Where are you going?
I sense something. It's calling to me.
She doesn't have any time to explain as she bursts into a run and makes her way towards the lower levels where his quarters are. Osha opens the door but freezes before she can step inside. Her eyes widen as she sees Master Torben on the ground, poison dripping from his lips. Standing over his body is May, humming an ancient spell to maintain the ghosts. She has Torben's lightsaber on her belt. When she sees Osha, though, the green energy in her eyes begins to fade as she stares up in surprise.
Osha?
Before she can react, Osha snarls and fires her blaster, forcing May to duck and dodge these attacks. Unfortunately, this fully breaks her concentration, and the ghosts dissipate. Yearned activates his comlink.
We found May. She's in Torben's quarters.
Hearing the footsteps coming from above, May throws them back with the force, and disappears in a wave of green mist. By the time the rest of the Jedi arrive, she's long gone. They stare down at the body of their former comrade. Sol's face becomes heavy with grief, a great sense of regret lingering around him as he crouches next to his friend, where he places a weary hand on the Jedi's chest.
Let us bury him.
Although tragic, Torben's death confirms that it is indeed May after them. This does little to satisfy the Jedi Council.
This can give us an advantage. I know May. She only has connections to 4 Jedi. Indara, Torben, myself, and Kalnaka.
Then return to Coruscant, you must, to avoid this trap.
With all due respect, I think the best course of action is to head to Kalnaka's location. With the 2 of us there, we will know exactly where May will strike next.
What you are proposing is incredibly dangerous. To use yourself and a fellow Jedi Master as live bait.
If it means putting an end to all of this, I will gladly accept that price. I am sure Master Kalnaka would agree. If not, then I shall return to Coruscant as you suggest.
Thankfully, when they contact Kalnaka, the Wookiee is in complete agreement, and Sol's strike team heads to Kofar to set their trap. In another part of the city, May regroups in an alleyway as she prepares her next move. With Sol in the city, it offers her a chance to finish him off as well. But before she can consider the best course of action, her Night Sister medallion begins to glow. As she touches it, the mental image of Talzin appears.
My May, I have heard about your recent success. To best 2 Jedi Masters is a feat worthy of recognition in our clan.
I thank you, Mother. But my mission is not yet complete. 2 more deaths are required to satisfy my revenge.
You mean your training? Your dedication is admirable, but perhaps impractical. The Jedi are now on high alert and will be expecting you. Perhaps it is best if you return to Dathomir in the meantime and continue your training with me.
I don't need any more training. I need to finish this.
Precisely. You need this. But the Night Sisters cannot risk exposure before the time is right. Your mission endangers us all. If you are captured, then you will put your sisters all in jeopardy.
I will not be caught. And they aren't my sisters. They've made that clear.
But I am your mother, and I order you to return home.
If you are my mother, then you will forgive me.
May suddenly severs the connection as she looks up at the night sky. She learns through her contacts that Kalnaka is on Kofar, and that Sol is going there to join him. Raising her hood, May searches for a ship to take her there. Thankfully, getting a ship is easy. The problem is tracking Osha and the Jedi on Kofar. The planet is a vast jungle, and there are few settlements. Eventually, she manages to convince one of the natives to take her to Kalnaka's abode, but warns her of the creatures in the jungle. When she arrives, May is surprised to hear laughter coming from his house. She crouches down and sees several speeders and realizes the Jedi are there. Making her way towards the window, she spots Kalnaka, Sol, and the rest of the Jedi strike team seated around the table as they laugh and trade stories. Osha joins them a moment later and sits beside them. As May watches this, her anger begins to boil, seeing her sister acting so friendly with the Jedi, the same people who murdered her mother and destroyed her life. While she had known that her sister had left the Order, she had hoped that leaving meant she hated them and was working with them against her will. She feels the darkness gathering around her as she begins to cast her spell. May speaks the ancient Dathomirian tongue. The Jedi sense this and jump to their feet, reaching for their weapons. They head out and freeze when they see her. With a blood-curdling shriek, May unleashes her witch ghosts. This time, she doesn't just summon a handful of them, but the entire coven. Witches snarl and lunge at the Jedi with ghostly hands. This occupies most of the party's attention, but Kalnaka leaps over the witches and approaches May.
Attack me with all your strength.
The Wookiee obliges, launching fierce slashes at her head. May ducks under the blows and crouches down. She braces one foot against the tree and propels herself at him, throwing him to the ground. While on top of him, May begins to rain punches on Kalnaka, but these bounce off his thick hide. The Jedi shoves her off and roars defiantly. May steps back and somersaults over him as Kalnaka makes a stab towards her. She summons one of her ghosts and sends it rushing at the Wookiee, but his lightsaber easily cuts the Phantom down. May slides under his defenses, going high and landing kicks on the midsection. None of these attacks faze the massive Jedi, who catches her leg and slams her against a tree. Groaning, May tries to rise to her feet, but Kalnaka strides closer, his eyes burning with righteous fury. But then, a shadow appears in front of him and draws a red lightsaber. The stranger tips his helmet towards May.
Stay down.
Kalnaka doesn't back down and rushes at the new arrival. Rather than dodge his attack, Chimere meets it head-on and doesn't buckle under his attacks. Pulling out his smaller blade, he drives it forward, forcing Kalnaka on the defensive as he makes quick jabs at the Wookiee. As the blade buries itself into Kalnaka's shoulder, he screams in pain but headbutts Chimere. It should be easy enough to crack a normal human's skull, but his helmet absorbs the blow and allows the Sith warrior to shove him back. While the Jedi blocks his lightsaber attacks, Chimere lashes out with his body. He kicks and punches the Master. While none of these hurt him, they disorient and unbalance him until Chimere's lightsaber manages to strike him across the thigh and send him to the ground. The Wookiee barely rolls onto his back as the opponent's lightsaber falls and runs him through.
Thank you, Master.
Don't. You failed your mission. You are an unworthy apprentice.
He was too strong.
It was not his strength that defeated you, but your weakness. You did not control yourself. You did not strategize. You did not think. I had thought giving you this task would teach you discipline. I was wrong. Now come. I will not have you captured by the Jedi.
My sister is there. I'm not going anywhere without her.
And you will fail trying to get her.
May shoves him back and growls.
I might have failed your task, but I will not fail here.
Before he can chase after her, May runs back into the main battle. The Jedi are still fighting against the Coven, but they are starting to gain the upper hand as most of the witches have dissipated. Rather than summon more ghosts to help her, she reverses the spell, trying to banish the spirits back to the afterlife. She raises her hands and the spirits begin to shriek, howling in pain as they begin to dissipate. Although they try and fight against this, the spell is too powerful and they vanish into brilliant lights. This draws the attention of the planet's predators, which leap from the trees and fly at the exhausted Jedi. May sneaks past them, approaching Osha, who hangs back and fires a blaster while she is trying to help Sol and the others. The arrivals of these creatures takes her off guard, leaving her unable to react until May approaches her.
Sorry, Osha.
She fires the stun blaster at her sister, leaving her dropping to the ground. Sol turns and gasps as he sees May running up to her sister and covering her body with her own. The Jedi Master tries to reach out, but May disappears into a cloud of green mist, taking her sister with her. By the time the Jedi strike team finished off these creatures, the sisters were long gone, but not Chimere. The Sith warrior looks at the tired Jedi and smiles, readying his own lightsaber. He rushes at them at blinding speed, his movements wild but also unusually graceful as he falls upon the weakened Jedi. Two of them fall before they even have a chance to register what's happening. Others rush at him all at once, raining blows on him, but his limbs move like lightning and block whatever they throw at him. Kymir kills the Jedi one by one until Yearned and Jeki are left. The two stand back to back as he approaches them. This time the two try to work as a team, watching each other's back as they attack in unison. The strategy works better as they manage to hold off far longer. Eventually Kymir begins to give ground, slowly stepping back as they press their attack. Jeki sees this and advances on him, moving out of step with Yearned as she screams and attacks him. Yearned calls her back, but it's too late. As she manages to land a blow across his chest, Kymir pulls out his short sword and stabs Jeki repeatedly, dropping her to the ground. Yearned watches this with wide eyes and screams, charging forward. He tries to attack while Kymir is pushing Jeki out of the way and lands a strike across his arm. The Sith warrior is surprised by the attack.
You struck me while I was unprepared. Well done.
He then throws his arm out and shoves him back. Kymir leaps up and prepares to deliver the final blow, but another lightsaber appears and blocks the attack. Sol growls, then pushes Kymir's lightsaber down as he elbows him across the face. The Sith warrior stumbles as Sol falls on him, his attacks coming down like a thunderstorm. Although Kymir manages to defend himself, the aggression takes him off guard, and he struggles to hold him back. Sol then switches tactics and begins attacking his helmet. Although the material shrugs off most attacks, it still leaves Kymir's head rattling while he stumbles around, disrupting his concentration. The Jedi Master senses this faltering attack and begins shoving him back. Kymir pulls out his short sword and runs it through Sol's leg. The Jedi Master falls, but he grabs the Sith Lord by the back of the neck and drags him down with him. He pulls out his lightsaber and ignites it, driving it through Kymir's chest.
Yearned,
He calls out, but then feels a dark presence washing over them. Yearned gasps as he's lifted off the ground, and a lightsaber is driven through his chest.
No!
Darth Plagueis drops the Jedi to the ground and approaches Sol. The wounded Jedi Master tries to shove Kymir's body off and free his lightsaber, but it's too late. The Dark Lord's shadow consumes him. Grabbing Sol by the hair, he ignites his lightsaber and slices it across his neck. When Osha wakes up, she finds herself safely in bed. But not just any bed. Her bed. The same bed she slept in growing up. She sits up and notices she's back in her old coven room. She gets to her feet and calls out for Sol, and then the other Jedi. But the memories begin to flood back into her. Instead, she calls for her sister, as she searches the halls, eventually finding her in the training area.
Isn't it nice to be home? Where we should be. This place isn't my home. It hasn't been for years. I know it isn't much, but we can rebuild it. Together.
She reaches out to grab Osha's hand, but her sister pulls away.
You think I'd do anything with you? Much less stay here after you killed our mother? I didn't kill our mother. The Jedi did. I saw it with my own eyes. Your master ran her through with his lightsaber. No, you're lying.
Osha's anger dissipates and is replaced by shock as she stares at her sister, trying to understand what she just said. She stumbles back and shakes her head, but as she grips the ancient stones of this fortress, memories run through her mind of that fateful event. She sees her mother turning into a pillar of smoke in front of Sol. She sees the fear in his eyes, and then his lightsaber impaling her. Then, footsteps begin to echo across the floor. For a moment, Osha thinks it's still her vision, but then she sees Plagueis appearing by the door.
She isn't lying, but you sense that, don't you?
You.
Silence. My apprentice told me all about you. You are not fit to be my acolyte. Not until you prove yourself worthy. I have not come here to save you or slay you. only to observe. I will allow only one of you to leave this room. The one who kills the other.
Master, please, you cannot possibly ask me to.
Osha suddenly charges forward, with her fist raised, staring at May with a mixture of desperation and anger. Her sister barely reacted, raising her hands to block, leaving her stumbling. As she prepares to attack again, May uses the Force to shove her back.
I didn't kill our mother. You've been brainwashed by the Jedi.
She's cut off by a sweeping kick Osha throws, trying to knock her off balance, but May steps back.
No, I'm not. For the first time, I see clearly. Maybe Soul did kill our mother, but you still started that fire. You did it to kill me, because you couldn't accept me wanting something more than just you.
May stumbles back from another punch. The force of the blow sends May sprawling to the ground, her back hitting the cold, hard stone floor. She lunges at May again, but her sister manages to sidestep the attack and lets Osha's momentum carry her past. May kicks out, catching Osha in the side and sending her crashing into a nearby pillar.
You chose this path, May, and you wanted to leave us behind.
May's face twists with anger as she channels the Force to push Osha away, but Osha anticipates the move. She plants her feet firmly and uses her connection to the Force to anchor herself, the invisible energy crackling around her.
We had everything here. We could have ruled this coven together and done great things, but you only cared about what you wanted.
May's expression hardens as she draws upon her anger, the dark side swirling within her. The twins clash in a brutal flurry of punches and kicks, their movements mirroring as they anticipate each other's attacks. Neither one can surprise the other, until Osha suddenly jerks her head towards her sister and slams it into her face.
Do you hear yourself? You were willing to burn everything we had to the ground because you couldn't let me go. I've spent my life living with your shadow over me. I failed the trials because I couldn't understand how someone I knew could be capable of such cruelty. I nearly went to prison and died because I was being punished for your crimes. And now I'm forced to fight for my life because you can't accept that I made my own decisions. Maybe your master is right. The only way forward is with one of us. Fine then, if you think you're better off without me. I'm done holding back.
Spreading her hands out, May begins to raise the spirits of the dead witches and sends them forward towards Osha. She watches as the spectral forms of her mother and her coven rush at her, arms outstretched as they prepare to drag her to the spiritual world they live in. But then Osha's eyes harden as she raises her arms. The spirits stop. They are trapped in a battle of wills between the two sisters. May's forehead beads with sweat as she tries to maintain her grip on the spirits.
I'm done being controlled by shadows.
She thrusts her hand out, and the spirits suddenly turn on May. They snatch her by the shoulders and begin lifting her off the ground as they fade out of existence, dragging her with them. She screams for help, pleading for Osha to save her, but her sister doesn't move, watching her disappear until there's nothing left.
Well done, Osha.
Are we done here?
Not quite.
He points out the window, and Osha sees the Jedi strike team making their way inside the fortress.
One final step to satisfy your revenge.
Osha stares down at the Jedi, the order that raised and cared for her for most of her life. But as she looks at them, she regards them with fresh eyes. She cannot erase the image of her dead coven when she looks at them. But she also can't forget the years she spent with them training, learning, and laughing. Instead, Osha shoulders past the Dark Lord.
I'm not so easily corrupted. Like I said, I'm done being controlled by shadows.
She continues walking, expecting the Sith warrior to stop her. But he remains where he is until she disappears down the hall. Once she's gone, Plagueis retreats to the darkness as well. He recalls Chymir's report, saying how her sister did not even stop to think upon what she was doing. This one was smarter and showed great skill. Perhaps there is some potential in her if properly trained, But unlike her sister, turning her may take some time. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.